time for the big three stocks, three charts, three trades. Rick Ducat will take us through the charts, and here to take us through the trades is Jessica Inskip of stockbrokers.com. Rick, Jessica, great to have you both. So before we get into the trades and the charts, Jessica, I want to get your thoughts on this market because we're kicking off this holiday shortened week on quite a bright spot here.
That we certainly are. I still think our attention needs to be on the 10-year. Any time that the 10-year gets to about 4.5%, it starts getting a little more attractive than the risk on equity markets. So I think it's just important to understand how that's going to translate into valuation models and the really domino effect that we have with the overall market. But like I've been saying, we still have that ceiling of uncertainty. I think it's going to be difficult, as close as we are to those all-time highs, to get past that until we have more clarity on tariff policy. We're still getting a lot of noise around that, so I'm looking for clarity. And then, of course, we have Nvidia tomorrow, which is the Super Bowl of earnings, if you will.
Yes, of course, and we're going to get to that. But your first trade is actually Alphabet. Alphabet shares up about 2% today. I know for the big three, you have this focus on tokenization and blockchain. So tell us about your first trade for Alphabet.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have this focus. So I do think that even in this uncertain type of market, we can still have growth, and that growth can come with technology. Now, the next leg of that may not necessarily be AI related. I believe, in my personal opinion, that it's going to be blockchain, tokenization, and these decentralized assets. The evidence of that, we've got Kraken that is launching or announced this pilot program that's going to be token-backed equity trading within the US. There is big banks saying they're going to have those types of securities. And then we have the SEC head that's very digitization forward. So that to me says this is going to be a next leg higher because we have a lot of big players there. And ironically, all three of my stocks are still related to that AI momentum, which means it supports that technology rally even more in my view. So Alphabet specifically, over the weekend, there was a surge in social media on VO3, which is their new video model. It was a brilliant PR move, in my opinion, because the VO3 videos were really, really in depth and clarity. You could not tell they were AI, but the AI was questioning that they were AI. So it put you in a little loophole there. But that grabbed a lot of traction. And what we learned back in 2023 and even at the end of 2022 with ChatGPT's rise, and even with the demise of some of Google's older products, it has a lot to do with marketing. So that's a plus there. Additionally, they've got a huge AI reach because of what happened with that marketing live. They've got 15 products with over 500 million users, which is 7 of those that have more than 2 billion, all powered by Gemini, which gives them a really, really broad reach, which is great. And on top of that, they are part of blockchain infrastructure. I think that's important. That's a theme I'm going to start bringing up. It's important to build that infrastructure layer via the Google Cloud. So I think Alphabet is positioned to be a foundational player as we look at those long-term growth opportunities from a technological perspective.
Okay, so some transformative tech there. Rick, shares up about 2% right now, up 8% this month. It's still lower year to date. So take us through the chart for Alphabet.
We find ourselves in a situation where we have recovered to the level of a small gap that we saw right here near 170. We tested it previously, but we're not able to clear it. Now it's looking like perhaps we're hanging on above that level so far. We made a push above it during the end of last week here after holding on to the confluence of our 3 moving averages that we follow: yellow 21-day, orange 63-day, and purple 252-day exponential moving averages. Notice that they're clustered together. That suggests that there's weak trend directionality here and kind of a more of a drift here after the volatility we saw during the tariff news related chaos here. But now perhaps starting to solidify and resume something of an uptrend here. We can see our yellow 21-day EMA is starting to trend upwards. It's starting to move faster than its longer term counterparts here. So it should be interesting to see if we can continue making that push to the upside. RSI above the 50 midline, continuing to make new relative highs along with price. And if we were to assess our standard deviation channels and volume profile study, we can see the area where we had this confluence of our moving averages also lines up quite closely with our volume profile point of control, which is the heaviest trading area that comes in around 164, 165. So a crucial area for price to hold. And beyond that, then we would be in danger of slipping below this very short-term white trend line here going upward. If we were to move further to the upside, another volume node comes in right about 175 or so. That could be another potential consolidation area. But when we look at the long-term view, we can see that for the most part, we have held on to this key area down here, our long-term volume profile point of control, near about 140. So it seems like we just kind of bounced off of the old high areas that we saw here, and we're continuing to climb upward.
Okay, all right. Alphabet shares, yeah, about 17% off the highs. Jessica, your next trade is much closer to the highs, outperforming all of the Mag 7 this year, and that's IBM. Tell us about this trade.
Yeah, I've liked IBM for quite some time because it's an enterprise solution that offers consulting, but also a lot of technology solutions for enterprises. And that's really important as we think about AI. We want to see, or investors really in the market wants to see that translate into earnings. And IBM is the leader in that and the beginner of that. They also are going to do that with blockchain as well, and the cloud, which are important components. And again, it's the theme that I'm bringing to you today. So still enterprise grade solutions within the blockchain. They have infrastructure and tokenization tools. They even have support industry from finance to food logistics, and have a major partner with Walmart that they've had a few years ago that helps with logistics and food traceability with supply chain solutions that are a real world blockchain use case. On top of that, the headline that caught my attention today was that with Deutsche Bank, where they were praising IBM for helping to modernize and strengthen their infrastructure, that IBM had a very large role in their large-scale digital transformation. And on top of that, AI plus cloud tailwinds. So if we think about the needs for AI, if you're a company and you're not on the cloud, that's step one in order for you to access AI and start getting those type of solutions. IBM is a solution for you. So with growing exposure to cloud migration and AI, IBM's positioned for that. They are absolutely going to capture that, and it's an essential enterprise infrastructure for AI, but also blockchain and cloud.
Okay. IBM shares up about 19% year to date, Rick, up 56% over the past 1 year. So what stands out to you in terms of levels?
Well, what stands out most to me about this chart is how different it looks from the rest of big tech. Most of the big tech charts looked like Google that we just looked at, where we had the high point earlier in this year, then a big decline on the tariff news that made 52-week lows, then a gradual resurgence. Very different look here, because you can see that we had our sideways area during this period, then we had a big push to the upside. We topped out around 266, making a short-term range there. We retested it. We made some new intraday highs, but we didn't quite manage to make a push to the upside just yet. I will say, though, that price held on to its yellow 21-day exponential moving average despite drifting beyond this upward sloping trend line here. So perhaps a brief reset. We did not even test the green line here that represents a series of highs and low points here, 250. That would be one supportive area to keep in mind. RSI was interrupted. Our green trend line has been broken, but we remain above that 50 midline here. So perhaps once again, just kind of a pause as this stock retested those old highs. If we were to consider our volume profile study, we can see that our green line, that 250 area, matches up quite closely with a volume node. That's the biggest node that's near current price history here. We can also see that price is quite close to our blue line, our linear regression line, which is our line of best fit, some notion of fair value used by traders here. If we were to continue to push up to the upside here, the +1 standard deviation channel, one standard deviation above that linear regression line, comes in just below 292. So one area to consider if price continues to climb. And bear in mind, that will be a moving target. This is just kind of a snapshot of right now where that one standard deviation move would be.
Okay. All right. And Jessica, you said it, the main event this week, potentially of the quarter, Nvidia earnings. Nvidia is your final trade. Fill us in on what stands out to you there.
I definitely want to talk about it, especially when I'm doing my research this weekend, going over who's going to be a primary beneficiary of this decentralization and blockchain, and Nvidia came up on that. They are a key hardware provider for blockchain networks. They are for AI. They are the backbone of both, and that's due to their high performance GPUs. And they have a strategic role in that entire ecosystem, but a role in scaling and securing it, which is important and again, foundational, much like Google or Alphabet. Because of earnings, I don't want to buy this prior to earnings. It's already a large concentration in a lot of people's portfolios. It represents 6% of the S&P 500. Therefore, it's market moving. So what I'm watching for is risks tied to the HTO chip export restrictions. There was that quote of Jensen Huang said up to 15 billion lost in China sales. The market's forward-looking. We price that in. What's the reaction? What's any forward-looking guidance? I believe it's probably going to be cautious. Any pullbacks could be a long-term buying opportunity. But really what we're looking for is clear visibility into acceleration. If they miss earnings and we still get that clear visibility into acceleration, I will see that as a buying opportunity.
Okay. And Rick, what stands out for Nvidia's charts? It's officially back in positive territory year to date, although just barely above the unchanged line.
Yes, this one is much more of the chart general trajectory that we've been seeing across the board lately here for big tech. We had our high point here, then our big decline, our 52-week lows during the tariff news, now the resurgence. But in the shorter term, we can see that price has pushed above this downward sloping trend line. It pushed above all three of our moving averages very quickly here. And now we have a setup that many traders often look for here. So we can see we had our push to the upside. We had our move upward on strength here, and then we had a period of declining prices, consolidation, a bull flag type of shape here. So now the next step that many traders would look for would be a strong push above these highs. So around 135, 136, that would be the area that the bullish trader who is trying to play this pattern would be looking for. Now, I'm certainly not saying it's going to play out that way or that it's going to happen. Just this is a very common setup that people stay on the lookout for. 142 represents a gap here and a high point here. That could be another notable upside area to consider. To the downside, our trend line matches up with our yellow 21-day EMA near 125. And then we also have this green line here representing some old highs and a gap up that doesn't line up quite exactly with 122, but that's where things started to take off once again here. Now, if we were to look at our volume profile study, not too terribly much help in this case. The trading is very heavily concentrated kind of in the middle of the chart here, but we do see that once we start getting too far above 139, 140, the volume really starts to drop off. We could see faster moving prices in this area. Our point of control comes in near 119, 118, lining up with our moving averages. So that gives us a very notable supportive zone potentially to keep an eye on.
Okay. All right. Rick Ducat, Jessica Inskip of stockbrokers.com. Thank you both so much for the trades and the charts.